Hello, everybody. Welcome to World War III. This is Rob here at Digital Asset News and Jerry Hall. Jerry, thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. I feel very safe here in my cubby hole in Costa Rica. My heart goes out to all of you in the world that are in this conflict area. It's never a good thing. War is not good. Aggression is not good. Military type aggression is never good for people from a security standpoint.
It's never good for the normies, but it's great for like Lockheed Martin and the industrial military complex. Let's not forget that those guys got to eat too, Jerry. I mean, they are only billionaires. Come on, don't be such a. Okay. All right. So everybody, let's get into it and talk about it. First of all, if you want to follow Jerry Hall, it's a great idea to do so over on X. Unfortunately, if you look for Jerry Hall, you're going to see a lot of imposters. I know, Jerry, pretty crazy, right? So I linked his profile for X in the description. Don't follow anybody else. Those are all fake scammers. So today, what's happening? Anything big news? Well, kinda. Here was the market as I opened it up this morning, which I usually get up around 5 o'clock, walk the dog, come back around 6 in the morning. And I was like, hey, not too bad. We're only down 4.2% after the big bombing yesterday of 3 nuclear sites by the United States in Iran. I know everybody knows about that. So I was like, oh, not too bad. And then like 30 minutes ago, I did a refresh. And I'm like, hey, what the heck happened? 99,000 and dropping fast. Let me refresh this. Maybe it's even lower than that. Oh, yeah, it is. $9,147. What the heck happened? I think this is what it is. And actually, hold on. I want to show you one thing. This is Trump over on Truth Social. Any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed tonight. This was yesterday, of course. Thank you, DJT, President of the United States. And Iran said, all right, well, hold my beer. Here we go. So major news, Iran's parliament officially approves closing the Strait of Hormuz. Nailed it. For the first time since 1972, it approved, if approved by Iran's top security body, I think it's going to, shipment of 20+ million barrels of oil per day will be impacted. Jerry, well, I'm just going to skip all this. Let me just tell you why this is it. JP Morgan estimates that a closure of the strait could send oil prices to $120 to $130 a barrel. This would imply a spike in U.S. CPI inflation of 5%. Last time was in March 2023 when the Fed was aggressively hiking rates. Jerry, thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'm not a war monger, but if I use the same investing principles that I learned through the COVID era, when you have global distress or unrest, understanding the technologies or commodities that are involved in that supply and demand chain,
yes,
you can make some relatively, I don't want to say easy money. Like, for instance, had you, when COVID was initially brought to bear, had you had the foresight to invest in Zoom, you would have done very, very well, right?
Very well.
If you had the foresight to dump your airline stocks, your oil stocks, all of your investments that are about the growth of an economy and commerce, you would have done very, very, very well.
Very well.
Same goes here. Conflict. Most of these companies that you can publicly trade Lockheed, you can publicly trade Saudi Aramco. There's a lot of these companies that are involved in these type of things that you can make some money on. I even feel scummy, like talking about the profit potential in this, because actual people are being dramatically affected. It feels really weird. This is like you have this conversation in the back room. You don't publicly talk about profiting from somebody's pain. It feels kind of scummy.
It feels scummy. It is scummy, but it's the reality.
Yeah,
unfortunately, and it sucks, and we don't want it. But here, this is what it is, and we have a sphere of control, Jerry. We can only do what we can do within our sphere of control, right? So keep going. Anything else?
No, I think that's good. Let's hit the next topic. Maybe there'll be a silver lining somewhere.
Well, first of all, before we move on, and we're going to talk about risk levels because it's important. Me and you had a pretty good conversation, very, very quick, right before we came on. And he said something very important, which was the value versus perceived value versus the reality of value. So walk us through that a little bit about, when these types of dips come, when these type of major pullbacks come. I think it's pretty important. I know everybody here is a stoic investor, and they have no emotions whatsoever when they are accumulating or selling. They are like a big block of ice. However, I think sometimes it's important to remember what we're all invested into. So Jerry, take that, just talk to us a little bit about that.
So there's this interesting reality. The reality is that today, or right this very second, Bitcoin is worth $99,104. That is what you could sell Bitcoin at today. Now, is that the value of Bitcoin? Right? Is that the value of Bitcoin? Is Apple stock the value that the price in the market is pricing it? It is these elements that as an investor we need to understand. And so what you and I talked about earlier today was when Bitcoin was at $109,000 2 weeks ago, right? Some 13 days ago. And we, the market, believed that the market believed that. Did anything change with Bitcoin from then to now, although it's gone down 10%? Has anything changed about Bitcoin, the asset, Bitcoin, the technology, Bitcoin, the mining ecosystem, Bitcoin, the regulatory framework, Bitcoin, when all these elements that derive the value, has any of that changed? I can't think of one thing that Iran can take or give to the Bitcoin network system, framework, ecosystem that would either take away or add value. Well, they could add value by buying a whole bunch of it, but you know what I'm saying? There's nothing, this conflict with Iran is going to change the fundamentals of Bitcoin. So what is that 10%? Well, that 10% to me is opportunity, right? It's opportunity. And what people need to understand in the digital asset space, especially as the digital asset space matures, is that the digital asset space is the most liquid, easily liquid pool of capital for many people. So when conflict arises, do you try to sell your house and go through a 90-day escrow period? No. You take the gold out of your safe and try to, get silver coins that you can use as commerce so that you can feed yourself tomorrow. Right? It's about the availability to liquidity, right? And so Bitcoin is super, super, super easily liquid, right? I can, at any time of day, anywhere in the world, turn it into an asset that I can buy milk tomorrow, right? That's an important thing. And so people need to understand that it's not like gold. It's not like real estate. It's kind of like Monday through Friday, while the markets are open, you can sell stock and get money. But other than that, everything else takes a lot of time to liquidate. Well, sometimes when conflict, people don't have time and they're not thinking about time. They're thinking, I need to secure myself right now because of the uncertainty of tomorrow.
Oh, this is very true. And it comes down to value. But the one of the problems is I know when I was coming through in 2017, 2018, and people talk about the same thing about the value. I'm like, you know what? I don't care about the value that you're talking about because I'm down 50, 60, 70% of my portfolio. This sucks. and then I remember in 2020, and I was just kind of starting, I just started the channel. And then March of 2020, there was this thing called coronavirus. I don't know if you guys remember it. It was a big, big, big thing. Now no one really talks about it. And we saw some very big drop-offs. I mean, Bitcoin went from higher than 10K, dropped 70%, around 3K. And everybody was talking to me about the value of Bitcoin. Well, the smart ones. The other ones, is that my pacemaker? Hold on, let me turn that off.
No,
so
the power went off.
Yeah.
He's kicked in.
Costa Rica, baby, Costa Rica. But the whole thing was this. If you would have just been a little bit more staunch and a little bit more stoic, and you would have bought those times, 2018 was a great time. 2020 was another great time. And people would they're like, no, it's gonna keep going down. And here we are. If you just would have stood the course. But that is Bitcoin. And Jerry, we should talk about this. What about alts? Because right now, it seems like the more things that are established, and Bitcoin is the most established. That's why it's only down 4%, which I know people are like, that's awful. 4%, 6% for the week. But look at Ethereum, down 10% and 14.2. XRP, 8.4 and 10. BNB is actually right in line with Bitcoin, down 4.5 and 6.1. Interesting. Solana, 8.4, 14. Tron. Now, this is interesting. Tron is only down 2.6 and 2 out of everything. I think if you've watched the channel.
What literally is Tron built on? What is the total value lock for Tron, majority speaking? It's stable coins.
I don't know. It's probably just this guy. I don't know. But yeah. Sorry. So yeah, it is stable coins. And like we've talked about, and Jerry knows, is that if you look at Tether, it is 55% of all the transactional, or TVL, for Tether, and USDC a little bit lower than that. But those are the big players. But it is interesting. So Jerry, talk to us real quick about altcoins and which ones you think could. Why is it like this?
I'll tell you, the more I learn about the technology behind Cardano, the more I'm impressed.
Oh,
Number one.
Some people are going to love you, Jerry, or they're going to hate you. Keep going.
Yeah, you know what? It's the price you pay for having an opinion, right?
Yeah, it's a good one.
I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, it's not their money I'm messing with; it's mine.
Exactly.
And I have to have the conviction. I will be honest with you. I think most alts are. They're not going to be here in 5 years, and 97% of them won't be here in 10 years, right? And so it's a game of probabilities. And so my framework around my investment thesis around L1 proof of stake protocols and even other proof of work protocols is, what is the probability that an application is going to be built on that protocol that'll reach 1 billion people? Now, here I had to apply that. I had dismissed Tron from that conversation.
Yeah, me too.
Some time ago. And it wasn't until having discussions with you and then going back and doing a little bit more research and kind of reframing my thesis that I realized stablecoins are an application that is going to reach billions of people, right? As we march further and further into value exchange in the digital domain. So therefore, Tron now all of a sudden becomes a stable piece of my portfolio. I'm not looking to get rich on it. I'm looking to gain a pretty decent yield consistently throughout the year. And hopefully the underlying asset will also have an evaluation curve to it, not unlike any of the other protocols that are, building. And then ones that have expansionary monetary policies have to be framed differently than ones that have fixed supply, deflationary policies, right? Because you have to understand the mechanics of what drives value to an individual unit.
This is it. What drives value to an individual unit? And that's really what it comes down to. So, again, I know people would say, I don't get it. Well, just take a look at the numbers right now. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, if we're going to be in World War III tomorrow, or if we're going to see a de-escalation, but I can tell you the price action right now, this is what it is. And you can see that Bitcoin's held up pretty well, but there's some ones, even altcoins, have held up reasonably okay, even as Bitcoin dominance goes up. So there's that piece. And I will just jump back. I know people are thinking to themselves, well, what should I do here? What's the best route? Should I go all, deep into Pepe? Should I do fart coin? Or should I just say, what, maybe I'll just stick to Bitcoin? It's up to you. But I will tell you, like, what I do. I don't know what Jerry, I think me and Jerry are the same wavelength. When I DCA, every day it's Bitcoin. And today it's even more so, because as time has gone, as the risk has gone down a little bit, I have to increase my dollar cost average. And again, if I would have done this in coronavirus time, I would have been multi-millionaire and things would have been better. But some of you out there probably are just, maybe this is your first time around. I'd like to introduce you to someone. This is Bitcoin Isla. And I linked her video in the description. She is probably one of the future of crypto, just like we have with Randy Hipper. And what she talks about is that when she got in, and I think this is for a lot of people, she got in when Bitcoin was at its all-time high, roughly around here. Oops. Face. Let me just put this up here. Roughly when it was 67,000, 66,000. Then everything lost. And that's when she did all her research. And it's a good reminder of just sticking to the course. It doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, whatever else, but you can make a really big dent moving forward. So like Jerry talked about value, has the value changed? Was there a double spend? Did, I don't know, did Jack Mallers come out as Satoshi? Nobody knows who Satoshi is. I think it's all just the same thing. But I will disagree with Jerry here and just take a look at the valuation. And watch that video. It's pretty good. It's like 5-6 minutes or so. And she just talks about how like she was ridiculed by everybody. And she stuck with it. And here she is. Jerry, thoughts on that one?
You know, sometimes we can get easily distracted in complexity. And it's important to keep getting grounded back into simplicity, right? Mm-hmm. Time in the market will always be more profitable for the investor than trying to time the market. I don't know how many generations have to learn that lesson in a hard way, right? It was a tried and true method when I was 18 years old. Yet I made many mistakes thinking that I could game the system because I knew better than the embodiment of knowledge of mankind, right? I'm this, new thinker. I've got these new ideas. I've got these angles. Truth is, it's really simple. If you're in here to secure greater value in the future through making wise decisions, concrete yourself into the market, find a network that is dominant, that is understood, that has the clarity for growth that most of the world has not discovered yet. Well, that's Bitcoin, right? What I think it's something like this. Help me if I'm wrong. I'm sure the comment sections will correct me. 95% of all the Bitcoin that will ever be generated through mining endeavors has already been mined. It's already in existence. And only 5% of the planet is involved, which means 95% of the population is still yet to come here. Is that a dominant element with a clear path to appreciation that most of the world doesn't understand or has not come to yet? I would say yes. I am teaching my son, who's 27, to say yes. I have a 5-year-old grandson. He is learning to say yes. They're going to benefit. And it's not a complicated thing. It's put your extra cash into this thing because it is going to continue to grow because it's clear as day. I don't know what more to say on that.
No, you don't. You said it perfectly. I will just remind everybody, and we've mined up to 94% of all Bitcoin into existence, like you talked, 94-95%.
I'm sorry if I embellished, I apologize. 94%.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. People will tell us, but as a reminder, I mean, there's only 21 million, right? There's 21 million, and I still think that we've lost a minimum of 4 million from all the different wallets that just mined it, received it, and it's a lot of loss. Some people will say it's up to 8 million. So regardless, I mean, you can't have one full, if you're anywhere close to one Bitcoin, I think even if you have 0.1, you're in I think a pretty high echelon of standards. There's 60 million millionaires worldwide. America has the most, 24 million.
Yeah,
that's because we print money.
Over 39%.
Yeah, it's not too bad. So you think those guys want a Bitcoin? Not all of them, but I can see this is where things are going. And again, I was talking to my wife about this and yes, we will get into risk levels. I was talking to my wife about this, and we were talking about real estate. And I just told her, I go, and there's no more, I'm not going to get any more real estate, you know, because she keeps bringing deals. Hey, there's this deal in the Northeast. Hey, there's this deal over here in this city. And I'm like, you know, I understand why we were a little bit reluctant in 2017 and 18 about Bitcoin. Then maybe in 2020s, you know, not as heavy. But right now, I mean, you have the administration, the president of the United States going into Bitcoin and yes, some digital assets. You've got corporations putting on the balance sheet. You've got the MicroStrategy play. You've got sovereign wealth funds. You got an ETF. And you got people who are looking at it and going, you know what, we need to get into this a lot more, countries around the world. I just, from here on out, it's just pretty much mostly Bitcoin, some altcoins, yeah. And it just makes sense to me. And let us know what you think about that in the comments section. Jerry, let's break down a little risk level, shall we? So this is Ben's website. And as long as he doesn't figure out that we're stealing from him, we should be okay. If you want to sign up, there's a 10% link in the description for a little 10% off the first month. But what we're looking at here is risk levels. And let's just organize this by fiat risk. And it's a funny thing. We're going from the most risky to the least risky. And it is interesting because XRP has jumped up so much. Again, this is all by price action. You can take a look at this. You can take a look at 220-day moving average and stuff like that for the TA people. I'm just not a big TA person. I think that one tweet from Trump pretty much wipes out all TA, I'm just saying. But I mean, as far as like risk levels and historical price action, XRP, as far as risk level, 0.6, 0.621 is Tron. I think me and Jerry are late to the game. It's a Tron. I think maybe in 5 years we'll be good. Who knows? I think we'll be okay. And then Bitcoin, 0.55. Now we were at 0.58, somewhere around there, and we've come down considerably because the price goes down. Now we're at below 99K. Then we go to Monero, Solana. How low is 0.5? And for me, anything below 0.4 is pretty distressed. And which ones are those? Well, BNB's looking pretty good. I mean, if you're in all,
so
chain link, yeah, or below, because as price goes lower, as price goes lower, you get less risk.
Well,
chain link,
help me. Thank you. Yeah. I'm buying Cardano today as a direct result of this. I am.
Not a bad idea. 0.37. Litecoin, 0.36. You know who likes Litecoin? Tommy Crown. Tommy loves. Tom and Randy love Litecoin. They got the red. I guess yellow pill me on that one. I don't get it, or white pill me.
Yeah.
Avalanche. Pill. I shouldn't say white pill. It sounds very racist. 0.2. Just kidding. Hedera 0. I mean, these are, and then Sui or Sui, which was supposed to be the. I think it's still going to do pretty well. Wow, it's at $2.40. What a great one. Render. Jerry, I think this is your play right here.
One of.
Toncoin, yes. Polkadot. Good news on Polkadot. Cosmos, Shiba, Algorand, VeChain. Which one has the lowest? The lowest, well, that's a stable coin. 0.06. Which one is this? Polygon. Wow. Polygon was a powerhouse, and now the price action has been so awful. It looks like one maybe to, well, this is just risk levels. Anyhow, Jerry, thoughts on this one?
On Polygon, you know, so I could be wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong, but I am divesting from all of the Ethereum layer 2 elements. I'm getting out of them. I'm getting out of Ethereum. I am leaving that ecosystem. I hope I'm wrong for all those people that are not going to leave, but I'm out. I've been UTXO'd. I've taken the UTXO pill, and I'm all in the Bitcoin stuff. It's Bitcoin for me. UTXO bros. Yes, that's me. I'm one of them.
That's a t-shirt waiting to happen. So everybody, I hope that makes sense. And again, if you'd like to find out or check out Ben's website, what's great about his website though is that all the things that he puts on there, he puts a description and he does a video on it. So if you don't understand some parts, I don't explain it well enough, you can find the information. So there is that piece, which is pretty good. Now I just want to, and then we'll get into the little Q&A because I know there's a lot of questions in the comment section. But I put out this poll yesterday, we're coming up on 1,000 votes or so. And I asked the question, who knows their exact unrealized profits and losses on all their crypto holdings? I think this is important. It's important because, I mean, if you don't know, if you don't know where you're at, you don't know where you're going. And unrealized profits and losses are pretty important when you can figure out, like, should I sell? Should I not sell? Am I in a loss? I'm in a gain? I don't know. What's my cost basis? 60% of you don't know. 40% do. It's a good 60-40 split. I was pretty surprised. And I've got a solution for you, and it's free. If you go to CoinLedger, coinledger.io, links in the description. This is what I use for my crypto tax software, because I despise taxes, but we're all saddled with them. I've used them for 4 years now for my crypto tax, and they're great. But they just, about a year ago, they did the portfolio tracking. And you just go there, you click here, you sign up, it's free, and it tracks your portfolio, right? So first of all, this is how much I have. I'm just kidding. This is a dummy account. Never show your portfolio. This is a dummy account that they set up for me. Thank you, CoinLedger. And it shows you, like, here's your unrealized returns. Here's where you're sucking. Here's where you're not. Here's where you're doing good. Here's your cost basis. Here's what you can do. You might want to sell sometimes. Maybe you don't want to sell because you messed up on this one or whatever. And then what's great about that is that you can take this and then you just roll in your tax reports and bing, bang, boom, send it over to your CPA and you're done. So I need everybody to sign up for that. Actually, I don't need you to do it. I'm not your dad. You do what you want. But I'm just telling you, it's really easy if you do stuff like this and you can look at it and you don't get freaked out. Because some of these things I look at, I'm like, I must be under. I'm like, oh, I'm not under. I just been buying for so ever. I'm actually above water. And it just kind of eases off and that's a little bit of stress. Jerry, thoughts on this one? What do you use? I mean, do you use anything?
Well, I do. What I was using was this free tool from Live CoinWatch, where you could input your portfolio, and you could import every buy, every trade, every addition to your quantity through staking rewards, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But what I realized is that it's not perfect. And so that tool that you just showed us from CoinLedger, thank you for that, by the way. I took a note. I'm going to go join. When one of the things as an investor, it's super important to understand is in the equation that you go through in your mind, do I sell? Do I take profit? Do I not take profit? Understanding the truth versus what we believe, what we think. I think I bought it at this. I think this.
Yes.
I sort of kind of remember that, I'll be honest. I buy so much that I do not know with certainty my basis, my cost basis for everything I've ever purchased. I don't. And so if there's a tool that can go back through my Coinbase ledger, that can go back through my Kraken ledger, that can go back through my whatever, right, and bring the truth, well, shoot, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm all for it too. It just helps things out. And like, I get I know people will say, Rob, you're pretty calm. I get stressed out sometimes. And it just helps to kind of look at that and take a quick glance and go, oh, well, it's actually doing pretty good. And I'm sucking on this one. Maybe I should probably let this one go. Anyhow, it's up to you. Anyhow, that's it for today, everybody, for today's show. I want to thank Jerry for stopping by. We're going to do a little Q&A, but that was it. And last thoughts I'll just say is that if you've been around like me and Jerry, days like today, I mean, it seems like there's always a black swan around the corner. There's always World War III that's going to happen. There's always some pandemic that's going to crush us. There's always some AI alien thing that's going to wipe everything out. And it's just the worst thing of all time. But as you go through it, you realize that those things are few and far between. And all you have to do is just time is your friend. Yeah. Anyhow, that's it.
Yes, learning to understand what is a threat to your underlying asset versus what is just something that's happening in the market is super, super important, right? I remember so vividly, it was like December 13th, and I was on Twitter for some reason, and I saw a Brad Garlinghouse tweet. The SEC is filing a lawsuit against Ripple as a company selling securities, and it's being delivered tomorrow morning. And I thought, I went, wait, hang on a second. I read it again. Mm-hmm. This is very real. This is going to impact the price. I went and sold every XRP I had. And this was, I think, sitting at $1.75 at the time. It was back on that really nice upward trajectory with the market. And I sold every token and immediately went and bought. Took every
Lambo,
converted it into 3-cent Cardano.
Oh, look at that.
And I'm really proud of myself in that I recognized that that was problematic to the asset itself. It wasn't a market thing. That was an actual asset impairment.
Wow.
Right?
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Differentiate what the market is doing as a whole versus is it the actual asset that is distressed or impaired or something. That determination is going to help a lot of us once you start kind of getting into this. Is the value proposition the same today that it was a month ago when the price was 20% higher or whatever?
Or whatever.
And the answer is yes. Most of the time it's do nothing. Do nothing. And if you can, maybe you, what did you call, you have a dynamic DCA thing? Dynamic DCA element where maybe instead of $1 I invested $1.50 or $2 or whatever you have available kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. See, and like with that one, like you just said, like with the XRP, it didn't change the fundamentals of XRP, but as far as the company itself and what they were able to do,
it impaired them. It impaired their ability to do stuff. If you remember, there was a subsequent whole batch of delistings.
Yeah.
And it basically exiled them from the U.S. capital structure.
Yeah.
That is impairment, my friend.
That is impairment. That is pretty bad. All right, everybody. So good one, Jerry. Good one, Jerry. Damn, 3 cents, you son of a... Good for you. Yowzer Doinkasaur says, Iran got some freedom and democracy last night. Well, it was only 3 spots. So, I mean, these things happen, especially when you mess around. Let's see. Crypto Steve says, if you thought you were on a blind date with Jerry Hall, and this Jerry turned out to be disappointed, I perhaps would not be. I know there's Jerry V. Hall and Jerry Hall, Mick Jagger's ex, but I'm just saying. Iran has no military. Keith says Bitcoin will bottom soon, 90K tight to 96K. I think those are reasonable levels, honestly. It's been the charts since before the Iran conflict. Oh, here we go, Keith. Everybody, every TA expert is going to come on and say, it was already pre-planned. It was there. I can't believe everybody missed it, except for me. Why are such smart people not realizing these moves have nothing to do with the war? Come on, guys. Of course it has. Of course it's not. Of course. It's all TA, and TA's flawless. Come on, man. Iran realized nukes are a must now. Let's see what else. Oh. This is a good question. Who has been selling? Not specifically today, but over the last month-ish. So many people talking about inflows, ETFs, corps, and SWF. However, prices have been semi-stagnant. What outs are pacing in? That's a great point. I will say there's a lot of longs and shorts and liquidations because of leverage plays. But what else you got, Jerry?
So beside that element of the market, right, the whole derivative side of the market, you've got elements of people that need liquidity, right? So you may have a diversification fund, and there is some element of it that is very distressed. Let's say real estate in Iran, right? You have an Iran real estate investment trust. And you need liquidity to prop it up. Well, you can't liquidate your property or take a loan on Sunday, right? But you can liquidate your Bitcoin. And there's been a whole series. That's true. Right? There's been a whole series of people needing liquidity for various things that don't have anything to do with Bitcoin. Bitcoin just happens to be the easiest liquidatable asset.
That's true. And you know what, Jerry, this is the thing me and my wife were talking about today, which was about, cash flow. The great thing about real estate is there is cash flow. There's a lot more work to it than just holding Bitcoin or holding some alts and watching them go appreciate. But there's really no cash flow. And people say, well, Rob, just take a loan. Just take a loan. It's so easy. Just take a loan. I did that. Celsius. Didn't work out so hot. And then, of course, it's not just about the loan, but it's the timing of the loan. If you can take out the loan when it's in the bear market, they don't get margin called. And if you can take out the loan for a very small percentage of what you have, you probably make it okay. But then again, we need to talk about this on our next video, Jerry. Sorry.
No, it's
me and Simon Dixon talked about it. I want to talk about it with you. These loans, that is the cash flow, and that's what, of course, the rich do. But it's still, I just see like there's only so much you can really take out safely. I mean, you really can't take the 50% out because you better have enough.
No. It's not even good to take 50% out when you're doing it against your real estate or your stock portfolio from BlackRock. 50% is not a good idea. It never is, never will be.
Very true. How about this one? There is no top because fiat has no bottom.
Ooh, I love the slogan. I wish I understood what it meant, but it rolls off the tongue pretty cool, doesn't it?
Yeah. Doc Torrey says, no worries, printer go. Printer go burr.
Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful?
Hendrika says, so if you have a small chunk of fiat to add to your Bitcoin, what amount drop am I waiting for? Coming from a healthcare worker hodling for retirement. I got to tell you, like these ones, there's so many different ways to play that, right? Because let's say you have a chunk. Hendrika has $100, right? She's like, I have this $100 and I can do whatever I want with it. I paid all my debts. I don't have anything on my credit cards. I'm looking to invest and let this grow. So do I wait for Bitcoin to go to, what is it at? Roughly 100 today, 98. Do I wait for it to go to 50K and 25K? Or do I wait for it to go to like 90K? Or do I just say, you know what? I don't want to deal with it. Here's $100 at 98,127 bucks. Or do I say, okay, I'm going to put $50 in right now, and then I'm going to hope it goes down another 10% or 5% and put it in at that point. Jerry, what do you think?
Based on the levels that you just said, I think the smartest thing to do is take your $100, put it in the market, and forget about it. It is under $100,000 Bitcoin hasn't been a reality for the last 75 days, 80 days.
Been a long time.
That's getting close to a third of the year. I mean, a quarter of the year. I mean, when you start establishing normal norms, right?
Yeah.
So to be under 100,000 and you had $100 to invest, now is a great time to invest. Timing, again, it's back to that thing. Timing the market is so much more difficult than just getting into the stupid market. And this is not a bad time to get in because what did we just establish? Bitcoin hasn't been under $100,000 in about 75 days. Darn close to 1/4 of the year, right? And it's only showing a roadmap or a future of appreciation, not depreciation.
Yeah, it's very true. And then, it's a good point. And I would just say like this: just watch this video that we talked about with Bitcoin Isla, where she essentially bought the top. She pulled a Michael Saylor, right? She's like, yeah, I bought it 69,000, and then it just dropped and it kept dropping, and it was just awful, and life sucked, and blah blah blah. But I mean, she kept doing it, worked out pretty well. I think that's for the majority of us. The problem is like, can you hold on? That's about it. And then you'll have like Ujin Sky say, no, it's going to 92K. Chris has got to go on value cost average instead of dollar cost average, which is another way to play. Oh, yes, look at that view. So instead of just going every single day, you say, okay, I got $100. I'm going to put $50 in right now, and then I'm going to wait for 2 weeks, and I'm going to drop 25 and then 25 at some points, or I pick my my depreciation values and get in there. Yeah, it's any way you want to do it. I just say, like, if you really think about it, what are some really smart investments? Because putting in a savings account, probably not, right? Maybe real estate, but it's a lot of work unless you're just buying land. Maybe gold, maybe silver, maybe Bitcoin. But the thing that I always look at it, I look at my bank account and go, what is this money doing for me? Nothing. I mean, I'm not like Jerry. I don't have the millions that he does, but I just look at it and go, man, what am I doing with this money? It's not doing anything.
I got enough cash to get me through the next 40 days. That's it.
It's pretty good.
I don't hold anything more than that. Everything else is in a market working, doing something. It's either deriving a yield or it's in an asset that is meant to appreciate.
Yeah. You know what? I bet you that's like that meme of Christian Bale, where he's like super skinny, and it says, "This is my bank account," and then you show him on the next one. Well, it was a movie called, I think it was The Mechanic or something like that, where he's like super skinny, and over here he's like Batman, and he's all jacked, and he goes, "This is my crypto account," pretty much. J2 Day says, "Waiting for entries is for traders, not waiting is for savers." Another great statement there. Lex is right. What's the alternative? Hold fiat? Exactly. Where's that going to go?
Can we address Andy?
What's that?
Andy's asking, do you think something about the months ahead? This whole thing moves, so I don't see it anymore. Oh, there it is. Andy, 10:47 a.m. Do you think the market will worsen amidst the months ahead? I got a spin on that. I thought we might address that if possible.
Okay. Oh, here it is.
And so this isn't necessarily at you directly, Andy, but this is an observation I've made living through the consciousness of what it was like to be a human being living in the United States during the Vietnam War. I'm that old. Being an adult through Desert Storm, our first deluge into the Middle East, and then obviously Iraqi freedom and all that other stuff shit Rob went through.
Yeah.
One of the interesting dynamics around, we'll call it war in this era, whether it's the war on terrorism or actually going to war against another country, if you really go back and look, it hasn't been since the Vietnam War that the actual culture in the United States changes very much, right? I can distinctly remember thinking, wow, this is really different than Vietnam when we went into Desert Storm, right? It was really different. It was like the country just kind of kept doing everything it was already doing, right? People were starting businesses, people were going to work and going to church and having softball games at night, and the machine just kept going. Yet over there, bombs are going off, tanks are rolling down streets, machine guns are going off, and it was just a part of the news cycle for us at home. It wasn't that big a deal, and that has been mirrored in Canada and South America, Africa, parts of Europe. Only these war-torn regions tend to be at war. Everybody else, it's business as usual. And so I say all that to answer Andy's question, do you think the market will worsen amidst the months ahead? I think what will happen is that it'll be like every single thing else that we've ever seen. There's always a tremendous amount of uncertainty in the very beginning, and then it will normalize, and we will go back to making money. We will go back to the business of commerce. The capitalism will emerge once again.
Remember when Russia invaded Ukraine?
I do. Markets took it for about 72 hours.
Yeah, March 2022, somewhere around there. February or March 2022. Correct me in the comments. And then it seemed like, we had just gotten off of this magnificent bull run. February 2022, March 22, invasion time. And then it, like you said, 72 hours, people bought the invasion, right? They sell the reconstruction whenever that's going to happen. But then 4 or 5 months later, it dropped precipitously. Why? Well, it's because of Celsius, and then of course Voyager, and then of course in November 2022 we had FTX collapse, and that just pretty much took us all the way down to the lows of 17,586, whatever it was for Bitcoin. So I can see, it makes a lot of sense with what Jerry's talking about, and then Chris is on. It's not going to get much worse than this, but famous last words. Who knows? Who knows? What else we got? Plato says, I have just enough cash to get me through the day. That's good. Taylor Joe says, dollar cost average is okay, but it's also good to save a lump of, and it's a good point, save a lump of dry powder for the bear market, the big bang or the big pullback. 100K Bitcoin is impressive if you bought low, not at 98K. Very true. And that's why I think the people, this is what always would piss me off about when I watch videos, when I first got into crypto, everybody was so calm. Or excuse me, there was some that were so calm, but some were so hypey. And the ones that were calm, like, why are these guys so calm? And then once I started watching more and more, and some of them aren't even around anymore. They had been investing since 2013, 2014. So like, 20%, but whatever, still up. And that's, I think, where everybody's going to be at some point. So, the ones that watch this channel. All right. Ron Paul was right. Jesse says, yes, he was. Plenty of opportunities. Jennifer says, we can't help Ukraine anymore. We are dry. Yeah, let's take care of the people here. Ooh, Jesse says 68.3, in my opinion. We're just throwing out numbers. Let's throw out numbers, Jerry. What's the
87.135.
Yeah, let me shake this magic 8 ball.
You
72K.
So there was a time not too long ago, and we were talking, and it was one of those shows where we discussed dynamic DCA, this, that, and the other thing. And this is all around that Bitcoin in that $80,000 range, right? This just a couple months back. And I remember, so I went to Coinbase, which was what I was using at the time. I've since, like you, I'm over at Kraken, set up a bunch of limit orders in that 79.5, 78.5, 76.9 range, right? Never, you know what happened? You know what happened is all that money that was locked in those under call, under strike denominations went wasted, because it then shot up into the 90s and stayed there for a while, and then took its next run up over 100,000. I had to go buy Bitcoin over $100,000 with that money.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because I wasn't going to let that powder sit there in those locked limit orders when those limits are 20% away.
It's the way to do it. That was a good one, Jerry. I like that.
It was a stupid one. I should have just bought the damn asset and sat there. Just the normal dollar cost average. If I would have just done that, I'd be fine. In other words, I'm no longer going to try to get cute and smart and intelligent. I'm just going to be consistent.
It's like the video we talked about last week. Remember, we were talking about buying fear and greed, buying the fear and greed index, or buying the fear.
Okay.
And we took a look at it. Anything less than a year, it's not really going to make much of a difference if you just dollar cost average. Time goes over like 4 or 5 years, it might actually beat it. But then I took a look at some of the comment section, and someone did a graph from 2016 and 2025, and it said it just barely eked out of just dollar cost averaging. So again, and what I'm talking about is like you buying when we get into extreme fear, like people talk about, versus just buying every day like I do. And it doesn't really make a difference, really. So it's just like, just make it easy. The guy with the least worries at the end of the day is the winner. And I'll tell you this again, like we said last week. It seems like, the less you do, the more you make. You don't have to go out there and get into some crazy ass altcoin, meme coin, farming, bridge work, because somebody talked about it. Just don't do much, and you'll be just fine. The ones that do the best are the ones that don't do squat, really.
Can we go to Andrew Harling, 10:48 a.m.?
Let's see. Let me go back.
What about a high yield savings account at 4.5%?
Okay. So,
Andrew, that was for decades. Well, for generations. That was a very tried and true. 80% of the population would opt to that because they wouldn't have to think much about it, right? It was a very safe kind of thing.
Yeah.
The problem with it today is that the 4.5% high yield account that you're talking about is in a denominated asset that's losing 8 to 10% a year. So what that means is that you actually have a negative nominal yield. In other words, you're still losing money, right? Because if this is a US dollar, and I put it in that account and it earns me 4.5% in one calendar year, 365 days later. Yeah. The problem with the monetary policy that system is inside of is that dollar can now only buy 90 cents worth of stuff. So when I add the 4.5 cents that the yield is giving me, it's still not even buying me $1 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
About a year earlier, right? So negative nominal yield is not your friend. It's not. You want to put that $1 into Bitcoin, that could buy you a gallon of milk.
Mm-hmm.
And then a year later, it can buy you 2 gallons of milk. So you want value preservation, not more numbers on a ledger. You want to be able to acquire more in the future, not less. And so, Andrew, this is a great question. One that my grandmother would have wrestled with, one that my mother would have wrestled with, and one that up until me finding Bitcoin at 50 years old, which is only 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 9 years, almost 10 years ago, would have, you know, I would have had the same thing. I would have said 4.5 is great. Give me $1 million. Let me live off of 4.5% of it for the rest of my life. That would have been that's what I aspired to do my entire life. Guess what? Monetary policy, the way debt works and the way governments are using the tool of M2 money supplies, that's no longer viable. It's actually a negative yield. You're actually losing money.
That's true. But Jerry, that only rides out if the government keeps printing. And we know. Aha!
Oh, wait, do you know something that I don't know? Did I miss a memo that they're going to balance budgets and work under deficits?
I just wanted to leave it like there. So everybody, let's leave it right there. America, home of diabetes and high interest yields, and unfortunately, too much money printing. That's it for today. Look, we're coming up on an hour. Jerry's got to get things done. He's an important man. He has to get out of here. So if you aren't following Jerry V. Hall, links in the description. Make sure you use that link. Don't try to search for him because he's got a lot of imposters because he's in high demand. That's it for this one. So everybody, thanks so much for stopping by. We appreciate it. Again, just relax. Everything's going to be fine. See you on the next one. Thanks, Jerry, for stopping by. Appreciate you. Adios.